Recently, we headed out to the town of Amboy and Amboy Crater on historic Route 66. The town itself is east of Ludlow and west of Needles, California. First, we stopped at the town of Amboy, which is a historic and iconic destination along Route 66. The town started in the 1850s and is most known now for the historic Roy's Motel and Roy's Motel sign. The town used to feature a school that hasn't been in operation in a few decades. And then next to the school is the motel itself, which also has not been in operation in quite some time. And then you can see the sign, Amboy Crater, in the distance. And then across the street is the Amboy Post Office, which is actually in operation today, despite there being only a few residents in the town. The sign itself was built in the 50s, but the motel had been open long before that. Recently, the sign had a relighting ceremony and is actually lit up at night again. So we couldn't go back to the motel itself, but some of the bungalows in front were actually open and we can walk inside. So this is what the rooms would have looked like, minus the furniture, of course. As you can see, they were just basic rooms, but I'm sure they were a welcome stop along Route 66, especially being in the middle of the Mojave Desert and services being few and far between at that time. I'm sure after a long drive through the desert, a shower at the motel probably felt pretty nice. And then through the window you can see the main motel building. And here you can see the motel from across the street. Now the gas station and cafe are actually open, and while the cafe doesn't serve any hot food, you can buy snacks and Route 66 memorabilia inside. And you can also buy gasoline if you want. However, the prices are much higher than you would find in a bigger town. And then from the gas station, you can see Amboy Crater off in the distance, and that's where we're heading next. Amboy Crater is one of two extinct volcanoes in the area of Amboy, California. This volcano last erupted about 6,000 years ago. And as you can see in the drone footage here, the entire area is just surrounded by lava fields. With the area around Amboy Crater being so flat, the volcano really stands out in its surroundings, and you can see it for quite some distance as you are approaching Amboy. The hike out to the crater itself is about a 3-mile round trip hike, but the entire way is exposed, so it's definitely something you might want to think about doing in the morning or the evening if you decide to do it in the summertime, as there is no shade from the sun. However, the hike itself is, like I said, relatively flat until you get to the crater itself, and then there is some steepness, but nothing too severe. Then the hike brings you around the back of the volcano, and you enter the crater through the depression where the lava poured out of the volcano on the back side. And then you take the trail through and then up the volcano itself. The hike begins right off Route 66 in the Amboy Crater parking lot. As the area is pretty isolated, chances are you're not going to have a problem finding a parking space. Here's the view of the crater from the observation deck at the parking lot. And here's the start of the trail. As you can see, it's mostly dirt trail that heads through the lava beds on its way to the crater. For the most part, the trail is just dirt, but there are parts where you are climbing over lava rocks, but it's mostly just this type of sand that you see on the ground here. There isn't a lot of elevation gain on the trail itself until you get to the crater. There's a little bit as you get closer to it, but especially at the beginning, there's not much at all. It's a very easy hike out there. If you go there and you just want to get a closer look and don't want to make the entire hike to the volcano, it's, like I said, not a very bad hike at all. As you start getting closer, you really get some good views of the volcano as you approach it. About a third of the way into the hike, you come across a rest area. There's a little bit of shade and a bench, but not much else. Well, except for a sign that once again warns you about the heat and lets you know that hiking is not recommended. If you do this hike during the summer, you may want to go in the morning or evening, as once again it is exposed the entire way. Just past this bend, right after the first rest area, you can get a really good view of the volcano. If you don't want to make the full hike to the volcano itself, the first rest area is a really good spot to get a closer view of it, or right past the first rest area around this bend. As I mentioned earlier, the trail is mostly this dirt trail, but there are times where you do have to go across some lava rock. You're never really in jeopardy of losing the trail, though, as you can see it pretty much the whole way. Like I said, the area is so flat, there's no way you're going to lose the trail. Once you start approaching the base of the volcano, the trail starts to make a turn to the right and go around the back of the volcano. It's still easily marked and very easy to not get lost. And then 2/3 of the way, another rest area, another bench, and another very limited shade area. The area around the second rest stop is the first time that you really start to gain any real elevation as you start to go up and around the back of the volcano. It's not too steep here, but there is a lot of lava rock on the ground, and you do have to watch your step where you're going. here we are on the side of the volcano, still approaching the back end of it. And as you come around the back of the volcano, you can start to see the depression that you climb up and go through to get to the crater itself. The climb up through the depression into the crater itself is a lot steeper and rockier than the rest of the trail to this point, so you do kind of have to watch where you're going through here, as there is a lot of loose lava rock. And then here's a look back down the trail from almost at the top of the depression. And you can see how steep it is up to this point. Once you come through the depression, you are in the crater itself, and there's a trail that goes right through the middle of it. It forks off, and you can actually go up the side of the crater up to the top of Amboy Crater, on the right and left side, or you can continue straight through and you can go up on the other side of the crater as well. And that's actually what we did. So here's the middle of Amboy Crater. It's really impressive when you're in there and you just imagine that 6,000 years ago that was an active volcano and lava was spilling out of it, and now here we are standing in the middle of this volcano. And here's the trail going up to the top if you cross all the way through the crater. The trails to the left and right actually looked less rocky than this one, but this is the one we took. Then once you get to the top, you have stunning views of the entire surrounding area. You could kind of see Amboy off in the distance, and you will see trains going by, but no other signs of man aside from the train and the town of Amboy. And here's a look back into the crater from the top. When we were there was just a few other people out there as well. You could see them on top of the crater off to the side. But such a beautiful view. Great hike out there. Definitely recommend taking it if you get a chance. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, please hit thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.